All right, well, welcome to the grip lesson. I hope you've read the slides before this because there's a lot of insights in there that are just, quick, but will really help you get through this process of getting a really good grip and everything else that we work on a lot faster and a lot more efficiently. So, as we go into the grip, I'm going to remind you of a couple of things. One, really understand the power of the result, man. I mean, if you're going to dwell on the result, then it's going to be really uncomfortable to change your grip. If you drop the result long enough, then and grip is your only priority, it's really not that hard. Imagine sitting on your couch watching TV. Is it really uncomfortable to hold this stick in your hand? You could flip it upside down, backwards like this. I could flip it upside down and hold the head. I mean, nothing physically feels uncomfortable. The discomfort comes from worrying and contemplating the result. That's it. So is worrying about a result destructive? Yeah, I prove it every single day that I teach golf. So 3 parts of learning any skill set that I'm going to teach you about in grip, contemplate it this way. One, it's physical, so I'm going to go through a lengthy, as fast as I can, but there's a lot of details in grip, so just buck up and stick with me and hit the rewind button when you need to. But golf is physical, definitely. It's also mental. The mental tool I'll give you here is grip school. You're in grip school. The teacher's staring at your hands. The teacher is not looking at where you may or may not hit it. So you don't have to worry if it feels uncomfortable or anything. You just hold it the way that I tell you to hold it, and you get an A in grip class. Easy. Worrying about results, not easy, right? Which is the segue directly into the spiritual side of things. If we're told so many times in scripture not to worry about what we'll wear, what we'll eat, where we'll go, are we going to have a house, can I pay the electric bill this month? Worry doesn't help a single thing. Worries about your golf shot's not going to help you hold it any better either. It's actually going to make it much, much harder. Your result in this lesson, hold it as efficiently as you can. I promise you it's going to be a whole lot easier. I want to mention this, stand up. While you're watching this video, it's not going to do you very much good if you're sitting down or staring at your phone while you do it. Stand up, put the club in your hand, and follow me step by step as I take you through the process of getting your hands on the club, and it'll be a lot more efficient and a lot faster for you. All right, let's get your hands on the club in a really good manner. This is just a little process I walk people through. It's kind of aimed at somebody that's brand new to golf, that has never touched a club before, to preliminarily put their hands on the club and what would be referred to as a neutral grip. Neutral means that I don't have any bias towards whether or not I'm hitting it left or right or too high or too low. It's just neutral. It's there, assuming that we're going to create a fundamentally correct swing with the rest of everything that we do. So I love that. If you played golf for a while and you have a weird grip, doesn't mean you're bad. But I would try to get as neutral as you possibly can. Potentially, and what I see all the time is people have just gotten used to holding the club wrong. And so your whole swing has become a compensation to fix that grip or to accommodate the funky grip. Let yourself go as far as you can, getting closer and closer to neutral, and we can build a traditionally sound golf swing. It's really that simple. Okay. So the very first thing I have people do when it comes to this nice, easy little process is put the club directly in front of you. You're going to point the head of the club to your right if you're right-handed and to the left if you're left-handed. The toe of the club pointed straight up in the air. Grab it with your right hand, or I'm going to refer to it as the trail hand throughout the rest of the video. Trail hand, right-handed if you're right hand if you're right-handed, and your left hand if you're left-handed. And you're going to grab it, I don't know, 6 inches or so on the shaft part of the club, the metal part of the club, or the graphite part of the club, whatever your club is. Dangle your arms down until they're completely relaxed in front of you. And you're going to take your lead hand, that's your left hand if you're right-handed, and your right hand if you're left-handed. And you're just going to make a fist around the end of the club. I'm going to get a little closer and show you on the close-up. So you just make a fist. It's just like you were grabbing a baseball bat or a tennis racket or a hammer. Making this fist around it is really, really vitally important, and I'll explain why when you get there. The Next step you want to do, and I'm going to stay in this close-up view, is you want to just bring your thumb up and lay it right on top of the shaft, right on top of the grip, excuse me. If I point this forward, what I did is put some white duct tape on the front of the club. Now, the front of the club is referred to in golf as the weak side of the club, and then the back, which is still my grip, which is black, is usually referred to as the strong side of the golf club. It's not that strong and weak are right or wrong. It sounds like strong is good and weak is bad. That's not necessarily true. There's a lot of reasons that I'll save you the long speech, but when your thumb goes on the shaft, you want that lead thumb to be favoring the strong side of the grip, part of it touching the line that is directly splitting the club in half in reference to the face of the club. And that puts your hand in a neutral position as far as direction is concerned. Now, the other way to look at it is when your hand gets on the club, you can see that the face of the club and the direction it's pointed is approximately the same direction that the back of my hand is pointed. Close. It doesn't have to be exact. If I take my hand, for example, and turn it way to the back to the strong side, go to that close up again and go on this side, you can see that instead of in this neutral position, if I turn it all the way to the back part of the club, then the face of the club facing the target, but the back of my hand is facing straight up at the sky. And exactly the same, if I get too much on the front part of the club, the back of my hand's facing the ground and the face of the club is pointed to the target. So they're just not going to be able to work together in a proper golf swing. You'll have to make compensations for that grip in order to keep the face of the club straight. And you will do that either not usually consciously, but subconsciously. Everything changes in order to try to get the what? The result that we want. So the thumb goes on that top line. We're going to go back to the close-up view for a minute, and let me get it to the angle. You can see it really well. Yeah, that's good. So I've made a fist around the club. I put my thumb on top of it. Now I want you to relax your hand as much as humanly possible, like you just shot a vial or two of Novocaine into your hand. I mean, and I mean, like you're barely holding it, but your hand's still wrapped around the grip, so that your thumb can gently slide along the grip, keeping this flat part on the grip itself. Slide it up until your thumb meets up with the rest of your hand. See how my thumb and my hand are touching each other? I'm down in this long thumb condition, and then when I slide it up, it kind of closes this gap. I love that. Personally, that's the way I hold the club. I'll go back to the long view, but a lot of people, I think it's just anatomy, cannot seem to get their hand comfortably to do that. I call it scooching your thumb up into your hand. They can't scooch their thumb up into their hand. It's not a right or wrong, so don't get it twisted. Probably 50% of tour players do this scoochy thing, and the other 50% leave their hands in what's called the long thumb condition, which is really pretty much how it landed on the club when you went from the fist to just lay your thumb on it. It can stay there. Just make sure that you're in the right position on the club. That's absolutely fine. I do have a personal preference. If you can scoot it up as much as humanly possible, but keep the flat part of your thumb, the part just underneath your thumbnail, on the grip itself, then again, that's my personal preference. All right. Next, we're going to talk about the right hand and how to get that on the club. Okay, before we launch straight into the right hand grip position, I wanted to point out a few things about the left hand grip and why I do this process. First of all, and probably the thing I see most often incorrect in the lead hand of my student's grip is this: why do I start off having you make a fist around it like you were grabbing a hammer? Well, it's indicated by when I make a fist around it or grab it like a tennis racket or a hammer, the club gets, the butt end of the club gets directly underneath this pad. And what you'll see in this close-up view as I put my thumb on the club, when I go from there and I go down to the ground, how it's hooked underneath that pad, it's very, very similar to, if you had a hammer in your hand, you would want to hold it there, and that gives you leverage to hit the nail into the wood, and hold it the way most people hold it. You know what I mean? As it gets across that pad, it's why your glove keeps getting worn out right there, or even to the extreme, it gets across that pad, and then, gosh, you've got nothing to hammer a nail with. Put it in there, and then you've got leverage to be able to hit it. And we want that leverage available to us when we get to the golf course and are able to and want to hit the golf ball far enough to not be embarrassed. So if it feels uncomfortable to keep it there, which it normally does, let it be uncomfortable. Otherwise, you're not going to hit the golf ball far enough to shoot your best scores. So let it be there, irregardless of what it feels like. That's the number one thing I see people being really uncomfortable with in learning this grip. Okay, now let's move on to the right hand. Okay, man, thanks for hanging in there with me. I know the grip lesson can be pretty intense just in the amount of detail it is, and I know it takes a minute, but hang in there. You're getting a really good adhesion to the club and a good grip. Gosh, your grip affects everything else in your golf game. So pay attention, hit the rewind button, go through it until you get it. I promise it's going to be very much worth it. And you only got one more hand, so we just have one more to go. This one tends to be a little quicker, by the way. So what I want you to do, I'll kind of stand to the side so you can see it. So what I want you to do is take your lead hand grip, if your right hand, your left hand, and point the club straight up in the air, and then you're going to make kind of the little hook 'em horns, remove your thumb. When you remove your thumb, that's actually sign language for I love you, which I do because you have hung in there this long with me in this video. What it does is creates that little hook with those two middle fingers. When I lay my hand down in an opposing palm condition, which just means if I were clapping hands, my two palms would be together, and you want your left palm and your right palm facing one another, then you'd put the hook on the club itself. Putting the hook on it means the club is only in your fingers, and when I face it directly towards you, and if it's you, you're going to be facing your knuckles directly away. The two top knuckles of your bottom hand are going to be pointed directly away from the camera, keeping your hands in that palms facing each other condition. Now, you slide your hand down until your fingers are now touching. That leaves you in a position that you can make either, or is it either? Either way. Then that's called an overlapping grip, where you just take your pinky and lay it in between the index finger and the, what is that, your ring finger or middle finger of your bottom hand. It's kind of hooked around that knuckle. Or the other most common grip is called the interlocking grip. So you lace the two fingers together. I don't really have a personal preference for students. Whichever one of those feels the most comfortable to you, then you're more than welcome to do. I do the overlapping grip, but Jack Nicklaus and Tiger Woods interlock, so can't really be wrong to do it that way either. Next is that index finger. You just lay it on the club real relaxed. However, leaving that gap between your index finger and the rest of your hand later in your golf swing, that really helps to provide some bracing for some leveraged activities down at the bottom of the swing. So make sure you don't scoot your finger next to the other one. Leave a small gap, about a half a finger width, or maybe a full finger width, separating the two. The next piece, I'm going to go to the close-up, the lower camera for you, so you can see. You take your thumb, I'm going to turn to the right condition. There you go. You take your thumb and just put it against the side of your hand, much like we did in the lead hand, where the thumb is scooched into the rest of the hand. So once it's on there, you push your hand to the side so it's connected. And then I love this piece. It kind of looks like a jigsaw puzzle going together. The next piece, you'll notice that the curvature of my lead thumb, my left thumb in my case, and the lifeline of my right hand, when I take my hand and kind of fold it over on top of the grip, when it goes down, it pockets in there beautifully, and it looks like a jigsaw puzzle, and everything fits. When I point the club directly at the camera this way, then what you'll see is the last piece is When it's on there correctly, my hand is folded over that thumb correctly. About half of my right thumb is hanging off of the grip, and only half of the thumb is actually on the grip. A mistake is when you see your thumb get directly on top of the grip, or what I see most often, the club goes down into the hand and on the back side of the grip, and that's usually an effort to try to fix the slice that you've always dealt with. However, if we're staying out of results right now, just hold it right. Whether you hook it, slice it, hit the ground too much, top to ball, hold it right, and that will allow us to build you a proper golf swing that doesn't have a whole bunch of slices and tops and all that stuff in it. In other words, avoid the immediate gratification and take a more long-term perspective, regardless of what happens, okay? So that's the really good grip. I've already explained that in the lead hand, and mine, my left hand, the thing I see people struggle with the most is keeping the club in that hammer condition. In other words, underneath this pad, because as you go down to the ground, you feel tension and it's just uncomfortable. But again, hammer a nail like this and it's terrible. In the right hand, or the bottom hand of the grip, the thing I see people struggle with the absolute most is how much that club sits in the fingers rather than getting down into the hand. If I as I'm opening my hand, I'll go down to the close-up view again. When there's my grip all completed, when I open my right hand, you can see that it's none of this grip is touching my hand. It's all up in my fingertips. This is where you're going to lose a whole bunch of control and distance. And what feels completely out of control by putting it that far up in your fingers is actually where you gain control. There's a lot of opposites in my sports. In that trail hand in my right hand, imagine a baseball pitcher. A Major League Baseball pitcher can throw a 100-mile-an-hour fastball because he puts the ball in his fingers. He couldn't put it in his hand and throw it that fast. And simplistically, the right hand provides that kind of snap, that kind of speed at the bottom when you release the club properly later on in other lessons. So at any rate, that's grip, man. A whole bunch of stuff. I get it. Hit the rewind button, stand up, follow me as you go through it, and see if you can get your hands as close as you can to the ideal that I've presented here today. Great work. Can't wait to get to the next lesson.